Okay, welcome back to another episode. Now today's episode's a bit different. I got sent the package from one of my subscribers. Shout out to Robert Lewis. He sent me this, and from what I gathered, it's supposed to be a Dreamcast and a Nintendo GameCube with some controllers. So I'm gonna take a look at what he sent me and see if I can fix it. Now he did state that these were his project consoles and he'd been meaning to get around to fixing them, but recently had a house fire, so most of these items are covered in soot and ashes, and I immediately smell the smoke radiating from the box, but that's okay. I can deal with that. That's no big deal. But more importantly, I hope that nothing important was lost in the house fire. I hope the insurance covered everything, and I hope nobody got hurt or injured. So shout out to Robert Lewis. So this is everything unboxed and unbagged. Now here's the GameCube. Now as you can see, it's supposed to be purple, but it's just covered in ashes and soot. Here's a laser. I believe this is for the GameCube. So here's the Dreamcast. Now it's missing its laser and drive. So I suspect he was trying to do a mod to this unit and never got a chance to finish it. Here's the drive itself. Now I'm going to be trying to put everything back together and see what the symptoms are for not working. So he also included a couple of controllers here. There's a third-party GameCube controller, a power brick, a first-party GameCube controller. I'll be cleaning that later on. There's a couple of wires for the TV, and the Dreamcast controller looks awful. Hopefully I can clean this up. Now here's the Dreamcast, here's the laser, and it's all covered in soot. Now he stated he tried to clean it, but then quickly gave up. Now this ashes is they're really caked on, so it's going to give me a hard time cleaning up, but I'm going to try my best to still clean it up as best I can. Now I plug it up, and it seems like the light on the inside is intermittent. I gotta hold it down, the power switch. So perhaps the top shell isn't perfectly seated. That's what's giving me a problem here. So that's just one thing to note. Now I thought he had included the Dreamcast AV cords. Turns out they're PlayStation AV cords. Now I hope that he wasn't trying to use the PlayStation cords on the Dreamcast, because it wouldn't fit and could potentially cause problems. But it seems as though with my cords, the Dreamcast still registers on the TV, so I'm hoping that that port is still okay. Now the Dreamcast is missing that side port piece. I believe it's the modem, but that wouldn't cause any issues. It would still fire up with or without it. Now the inside of this console is covered in ash, even worse than the outside it seems. Before I even put the drive in, I have to clean up this edge connector here and make sure that it's not covered in soot before I seat the drive on it. So after I clean up that little port and seat the drive back in, it seems like the Dreamcast does fire up. Now the splash screen didn't come up completely. It just fired up with the Dreamcast logo. That usually indicates that the lid is open. So let's see if I can get a game to load. So the disc spins intermittently, but it doesn't actually get to full speed. And it doesn't seem like the laser's moving back and forth. It's not tracking or anything. So I believe that maybe the laser is bad or one of the motors are bad. So let me troubleshoot further. I'm going to take my tweezers here and try to move the laser up a bit without actually destroying the lens. and I couldn't move it. It was stuck. So perhaps the motor's bad, or the laser's just stuck. So here I'm going to try once again to move the laser up a bit, and it just seems to be jammed in one position. It's not moving. So this whole segment here is me just troubleshooting it and looking, visually inspecting it, and then eventually just taking it apart. Keep in mind there are 2 screws under this sponge here, so they're hidden. You have to tear the sponge just to get to the head of the screw. So here I'm going to actually move my multimeter to resistance, and I'm going to measure the laser's potentiometer. So if I did free up the motor and the laser just needs to be a little bit tweaked, then I'm going to take this time to do it now. So here I'm going to measure resistance on this pot here. Here's a close-up shot on how to measure this. You want to take the top right pin with the middle pin on the left. So now I'm going to take a standard screwdriver bit, and in this instance I actually turn the opposite direction. I turn counterclockwise, so I'm actually increasing the resistance. To decrease the resistance, which increases the intensity of the laser, you want to turn clockwise. So as you can see right now, I'll measure again, and I've actually increased the resistance by just a tiny bit. So I'll actually go the other way, and you'll see that I actually reduced the resistance. So it went from 830 to 860 to about 530. So I did ultimately test it afterwards, and it didn't work. So that just shows you how to tweak a potentiometer on various different consoles. So I went to my local video game store in Springfield, New Jersey. It's a place called Digital Press. They're always friendly in there. They have everything you need from Atari all the way up to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And they also fix consoles in there. So if you need something replaced, or if you are having trouble with one of your consoles, take it to them. They could probably find a solution for you. Funnily enough, I went down there and he was already working on Dreamcast stuff for another customer. And he had a lot of drives set up on the countertop, so it was just convenient for me because he had 4 or 5 drives. We found one that worked, and he sold it to me. So in this case, I'm just going to replace the whole drive and see if I can finish up the rest of this restoration. So right now I'm just taking everything apart. It's self-explanatory. I'm just trying to get to the plastic casing and separate the internals from the externals so I can give it a nice wash. So after I remove all the external plastic pieces, I'm going to let them sit in some soap and warm water for about an hour, and then I'll come and scrub them, see if I can get some of this soot and ash off, and if not, then we'll try something else. Okay, the pieces did clean up nice, but they're still a little bit yellow, so I'm going to try to retro bright them with a little bit of sun that we have in this winter. So I don't expect much, but I'll still try it. So while the external is retro brighting, I'm going to scrub this board with some 99% alcohol just to clean it up a bit. And I'll do the same for this power supply. Now this power supply looks really bad. This part here is the power switch, so I'm cleaning that up as well. For the controller board, I'm going to clean it, and then I'm also going to replace the battery just to give it a brand new battery. So after I clean it, this is what it looks like. You can immediately see the silk screen, and now I'm just gonna desolder this battery and add a new one. Here's the battery that I'm gonna be using. It's an ML2032 battery with the same tabs. It's just a different color tape, but it's the exact same battery. So I've already started the reassembly process here. I just added the motherboard to the bottom case, and I'm gonna add all the other components. So you can immediately see the difference between all the clean components and what was before. So I'll show you that after I'm done reassembling everything, how it came out. Now I'm showing you how to reassemble it just really quickly, but keep in mind I should have added the controller port bezel first, because it actually slips under these two posts, and it's gonna give me a hard time later on in this video, but I'll just do a jump cut so I don't have to waste any more time. So here's the controller port bezel I was talking about. It actually had to slip under everything here, and so I have to disassemble everything and reassemble it once again. But I'm gonna do a jump cut to not waste any time. So everything is more or less assembled, it's working. I'm gonna set the time and date just to see if the battery holds the time and date. So here's the top shell, how it turned out. I think it is as best as I can get it. I think it came out really well. It's a little bit yellow. You can still see a little bit of smoke discoloration, but it's still, I think it's night and day difference than how it showed up. And while I was at Digital Press, I actually bought this side piece here, so just to complete the Dreamcast. So shout out to Digital Press one more time, they had that in stock as well. I haven't cleaned up the controller yet, as you can see. I'm going to do that after this. Playing one hand is kind of difficult, so just bear with me.
Resident Evil. The American Midwestern town.
So here's the controller. I'm going to clean this off camera and then I'll come back to you with the end result. So here's the end result. The controller still is a little yellow, but it's much cleaner than before. It's still off compared to the console. Even the console in real life is a little yellowed, but on the video you can't really tell. But I really liked how this whole project turned out nonetheless. Shout out to Robert Lewis once again, and to Digital Press for having the laser assembly in stock and also having the side modem piece. And if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Okay, as a bonus, I'm going to be taking a look at the GameCube here. I'm going to connect it with the power brick. Now there's no light coming from it after connecting it, so maybe the brick is bad or maybe the unit isn't working right. So let me take a look at it further. So off camera I did test the power brick with another GameCube and it does work. So I suspect that the LED here is just dead or something's disconnected on the inside. Now as you can see, the GameCube does power on, but the LED doesn't work, the discs don't spin. So I'm going to be opening it up, taking a look at what's going on inside. So I'll remove the game. The game is really bad shape. I'm going to clean it off camera, see if I can get it to work with another unit, and see if the game is working. So I'm going to remove the controller board here. It's just held in by one ribbon cable, and see if I can figure out what's going on. Okay, upon further inspection, I noticed there's a big crack on the board here, severing a couple of traces and in two different spots. So I think that this unit is best for parts, just simply based on the condition of the exterior and the interior. Yeah, the cracks go from both sides of the board, on the front where the controllers plug in and on the back where all the joints are. So this controller board is in very bad shape. I'm going to try the unit with a new controller board to see if the laser's working, if anything else is broken. Even on this side there's several broken traces, so this is what I meant when the board is cracked in two spots. It's one over to the right of the LED and this side over here to the left of the LED. To patch all these traces is more trouble than it's worth. I can just replace the whole board and see what happens. So here's a controller board I got from a parts console, and I'm going to be trying to see how far I can get with this unit. So it turns out that this lid switch here is also broken. One of the posts is bad, and it's not allowing the unit to recognize a closed lid. So I'm going to replace this, because this is pretty simple, and see if I can get the laser to spin, or the disc to spin at all. So after replacing the lid switch, I do get the disc to spin, but it immediately stops and the laser doesn't come on. So I suspect I have a bad laser here, or perhaps even a bad motor. So this GameCube is starting to need more and more parts as I go. I'm gonna take apart this laser assembly and see if I can clean up the laser and get it to run. But it's starting to look grim, it's starting to look bleak for this system. So I'll clean it a little bit with some 99% alcohol and make sure the rails here are lubricated to move back and forth. Seems like everything's in order, but after assembling everything, I only get the disc to spin, but the laser won't go up and down, and it won't move from side to side. So I suspect it could be a bad laser. It could also be one of the two motors. So I'm just gonna take this GameCube and use it for parts. Now on a side note, I did try the second laser that Robert sent, and I still got the same results. So I'm gonna put the laser off to the side, both of these lasers, and drive off to the side. I'm not gonna throw away anything, but if I ever get any GameCube that comes in that needs parts, I'm just gonna take it off this. Also, I forgot to mention, I did clean the Rebel Strike game that came in this console, and it seems to be loading. Here's a console, here's a GameCube I use for a workbench, and it seems to be loading up. I'll be showing the rest of the gameplay footage at the end of this video. So here's the GameCube controller. It's not as bad as the Dreamcast controller, but it is covered in soot, and it's one of those two-tone controllers with a clear back. I've never actually seen one of these before, but here it is after I cleaned it up. Spent me about 30 minutes cleaning it, and it came out really nice. So I'm in my brother's room here where he has his GameCube set up, and he has the Game Boy player, so I'm going to be testing on this Game Boy Advance game. Now this controller works fine, all the buttons are responsive, there's no mushiness. This GameCube controller is as good as new. So it seems to be the next day. I forgot to get footage of this Star Wars game working, so I'll just show you that right now. I have been using the GameCube controller for the GBA player, and it seems to be working well. There's no issues whatsoever. So this controller is good as new, and this game seems to be working well.
Mission objective by following the orange wedge on the radar screen. Follow it now. Good job. Press the Z button while running to roll. Try it now.
So if you liked this video or found this video enjoyable in any way or helpful in any way, please consider subscribing and give me a like and comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video. But most importantly, once again, thank you for watching.